All right. Hi, my name is William Rogers, and I'm here to talk a quick little talk about climate change, an idea I had that might help with this to bring down some of the global warming. So, one of the things about global warming is that we have a lot of heat on the planet. That's the main cause of global warming, and a lot of it's caused from smog, stuff like that. But a lot of it's also caused just from infrared rays, like heat source from the sun being trapped underneath that smog. So I had this quick little idea. It's part of a bigger picture of other people's ideas, but I think it'll work. So here is a turbine. Currently we have wind power and we have solar power. This is a solar power panel. Now, my idea is that when we use a turbine, we create AC. When we use a solar panel, we create AC. What happens is there's two types of heat sources. Two types of infrared heat sources. There's what's called a shortwave heat source, so that's a shortwave infrared, a light range. There's also what's called a long range infrared rays. So what happens is your solar panel absorbs only the short waves, only the heat caused by short waves infrared. Now that can be on a direct sunny day or an indirect sunny day. A lot of solar panels do not require direct sunlight at all. You can look that up yourself. So what I'm suggesting is that this is your turbine. So we suck in air in order to create AC. But what if we redirected that air directly to a solar panel that also absorbs heat? So now we're taking in heated air, short wave and long wave infrared rays through the wind tunnel, through the turbine, and pushing it directly into a solar panel that absorbs heat, right? So now we're absorbing some of that global warming because we're taking in infrared rays and we're pushing them towards an element or a system that's meant to take in heat waves and create AC. So in my demonstration, we're not trying to create power from the solar panels, but a byproduct of doing global warming and trying to stop global warming by reducing heat infrared rays from the sun and from the air itself, we are creating an amount of AC, an amount of power. Now, how infrared rays work is that right now, as this diagram shows, going into the turbine and going into the solar panel, and what happens is it gets distributed. So whatever can't be absorbed by the solar panel is called long-range infrared rays. You can look that up. They're like it's too long of a gamma ray to actually be absorbed. So what happens is it goes right through it, like this. And now what happens to these rays is eventually they will hit other objects like a house or this, and they will bounce around the earth like this. And then eventually they will go up to the clouds and be pushed back down. Now during this whole process, a lot of these big rays that cannot be absorbed by this solar panel eventually will become short rays. So eventually they will become rays that can be absorbed by a solar panel. Now, how do we make this process quicker from this process where they originally originate from the sun? How do we do that? The turbine. The turbine spins, cooling the air. So these ones that automatically are coming into the turbine, along with two different kinds of infrared rays, both entering the turbine, are going to hit the solar panel. One will be absorbed, and the other one will start to turn into the short-range wave, which will slowly, some of them will be absorbed by the solar panel, which means less long-range rays will be coming out. Majority will be absorbed in here, which cannot leave the solar panel, turning into AC, which is our electrical current, and we'll have very fewer long-range infrared rays, thus lessening the amount of heat that's actually in the planet. It'll actually be absorbed and turned into electricity. So let me show you something. So now, how can we make this functionable? There's a couple of different ways we can do that. let's pretend we're on big mountains, huge mountains. So we've got your mountains. Come on. Right? I know, I'm bad at drawing art right now, even though I am an artist. So, here's your mountains. Up here we have a thing called a swell. The swell is where all our smog is and our clouds that stop infrared rays from going out of our atmosphere. It stops it. It says, nope, you can't leave. Thus, pushing it back down to Earth. So, how can we make my idea work a little bit better? 1. On huge staffs, you put your turbines. These hardcore rays, which I said are both of what? Short-term infrared and long-range infrared. So now it's sucking in all of these rays, pushing them directly to, what did I say before? Another staff holding your solar panel. Okay? This cooling system, because anytime you push something through a fan, it automatically cools that air. That's why when you have a fan, you'll notice that the air around your house eventually becomes cool, or when you touch the air in front of the fan, it feels cooler. Not just because of the moisture lifting off your skin, but because it actually will cool the air. So now, you're pushing out of here the majority of these rays coming out, because you're on a mountain and you're high enough to reach this swell. Most of these rays that are being bounced back down to Earth are going to be captured and used by that solar cell. Majority. More than if you're down here using a staff and using a solar cell. Up high, more heat is being captured. Down low, less heat is being captured. So, because that is, and this is all scientifically proven, you can look it up yourself. So here, now, we have this makes what? Because it's a turbine. So what does a turbine create again? AC. What does this make again? AC. So now we have two products, both creating electricity, one absorbing more long-range and short-range infrared rays. And so what this does is, we have all this extra electricity that we never had before. What can we do with that? Well, one idea is we could have a battery down here, collecting all this extra AC. Now, the funny part about that is that in my diagram, I'm not looking at this solar panel as a way to produce electricity. That's not the point of my discussion today. The point of my discussion today is that this will help to absorb short-range infrared rays, which are causing global warming. And because it's right next to a turbine, breaking up the long-range infrared rays, it will pass short-range infrared rays, which this solar panel will absorb more of. That's the point of the conversation today. But the byproduct of what I'm talking about today will create AC, which you could store into a battery. So now this is in the mountains, right? Let's say we did this in the polar ice caps. So now we have the polar ice caps. This is water. This is ice floating around the polar ice caps. So, in major like ferry terminals and places like that, we have discovered how we can make ports by drilling into the ocean floor and erecting big huge poles that help to stabilize our ports. Same idea here. You erect a huge pole, stabilized, minimalizing the amount of actual space on the ice cap where animals live, where mammals are. So the mammals can still be around these poles, and we can still have up here with what again? What's this again? The swell. So now we have the same idea. Right next to this pole is another pole. The same idea. Solar panel. long-range rays, short-range infrared rays. This collecting the short range and not leaving the solar panel. Some of these long-range may still leave the solar panel, but some of them will be absorbed and will not be able to leave the solar panel. Why? Because they're being cooled by the turbine. Right? Now, you could either use a turbine or you could use this solar panel, because what is this going to do again? It's going to create AC, which is electricity. What does this turbine cause again? AC, which is electricity. Where do we store that? Well, it could be stored in a power plant in Iceland or where the glaciers are. There could be battery packs in that, collecting the AC. Thus, this battery pack collecting this AC could return to power the turbine. So, on top of that though, let's pretend that over time these ACs become like big huge contacts for electricity. Let's pretend that because we have enough of these over there collecting all this extra heat, reducing global warming, now we have these battery packs that are full. We have a full battery. What do we do with it then? Simple. We do a simple thing. Super duper simple. We do what's called a battery exchange. Now, what does that mean? Think about it. What could I possibly be talking about, battery exchange? One, we have a city. Right? Road, building, high rise, whatever. High rise, small building, street lights, etc. Just doing this super fast so we can get this video done. Up here is a swell. On these buildings we have the exact same thing happening. Right? The long range, the short range, going into here, short range. Some long range coming up, but not as many because it's being absorbed. This going into a battery source. And then we're going to do what's called the battery exchange. Well, the ones from the Antarctic and from the mountains can be what again? They can be moved to the city, where they can be used to power street lights, hallway lights in major government buildings, in condo buildings, your other street lights, street lamps, park lamps, right? From these batteries. I mean, we ship things all the time from major crates from China and all over the world to sell big cars and big things. Why can't we ship a battery that's not only A, collecting AC, which we need to survive, we need our electricity, but it's also able to power all these things. And what else is it doing? Oh, I can't write, it's being all dumb now. Global warming. So basically, my idea is collect all these infrared heat rays as one idea to stop global warming, push it into a solar panel, collect that electricity, use it to fund its own self, so it perpetuates its own wheel. On top of that, the leftovers are collected into a battery source. The battery sources are shipped around to different cities when we can't, when like this city, Toronto, has less battery, and Chicago has tons of battery because it just was able to collect more on that certain day or whatever. We do battery swaps all around the globe. So now we have huge battery swapping happening. There's our Earth. There's our swell that's around the Earth. Well, it's in the Earth's atmosphere. So basically we just swap batteries to different hydro battery stations. So now we're reducing our global footprint, we're reducing our emission, we're taking in more heat. Instead of the heat rising and bouncing from that swell, sorry that my pen's dying, and being pushed back down to Earth, we have poles high enough that when it starts to be pushed back down to Earth, it gets collected in the diagrams I showed you today. It's just one idea that could work. Actually, I know it can work because there's science behind this. And that's just one idea that I think that we may have to, look towards in the future. Because as it stands, there's so much heat causing like polar ice cap melts, what I described before, all these different things. We're to a point now where we need to start reducing the heat that is trapped on the Earth. So this is just one way. I mean, solar panels are one way to trap infrared rays. For people out there who are skeptics and don't believe that infrared rays can be trapped by a solar panel, you really need to do your research because you'll look a little bit silly when you try to tell people that it can't. But that's one idea. So a solar panel can take in all light forms. Like I said, it can only accept the shortwave infrared rays. Damn pen. But the long-range infrared rays pass right through them. However, with my idea, cooling down that air, first using the turbine that we already used to create AC, now cools down the long-range rays. Thus, some of the long-range rays, not all of them, will be transferred to a short-range ray that gets pushed like a fan, blowing that hot air, blowing those rays towards an element called a solar panel that absorbs all the small rays. Every single short-range wave gets absorbed by a solar panel. It's a scientific proven truth. It's only the long-range rays that don't. But long-range rays can become short-range rays over time from bouncing on things like houses, roads, trees. Or we can speed up the process by simply cooling that air down and making it a short-range wave. Thus, we are creating AC. Thus, we are creating AC as a byproduct to help with smaller ideas. Another idea. Last one about the battery swap. Just in case people are wondering, well, yeah, we could actually, power our street lights and stuff with that idea. It actually would work, because it would. Guess what else it powers? We forgot about one major thing that we haven't even discussed, what those battery packs collecting all that AC could power. Does anybody else know? Can you guess? What could this battery pack power that we most desperately want, or most people want, right now? Electric cars. Charging stations. So now we have this battery swap that I talked about earlier from these huge poles. swapping out these batteries, flying them across wherever we need them to charging stations so that they may be used to power our electric car new wave of the future. My name is William Rogers. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you have a great day, and I hope this is some food for thought. Take care.